Hey guys, what's going on? Jebb here, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of technical analysis on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets, and more specifically, we're going to be zooming in here and looking at this little movement on Bitcoin here recently, where Bitcoin had a nice little rally over the last couple of weeks. Bitcoin had been trending upwards and to the northerly direction, but over the last couple of days, Bitcoin has started to crash along with the stock market, especially in the last couple of days. Bitcoin has started losing a lot of this valuation down here from a recent high of around $4,250 to where it trades currently of around $3,700. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about this movement, but we're also going to be zooming out and talking about how it may be playing into a much longer term, not bearish, but actually a bullish pattern. We're going to be discussing all of that and more in today's video. I do think it's a good video that we have lined up for you guys. So if you enjoyed today's video, definitely consider dropping a like and hitting that subscribe button. Also smash that notification bell so you'll be notified every time a new video goes out. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. As I said, Bitcoin is currently trading around $3,700, but we're going to go ahead and do the crypto market recap before we come back to that. Bitcoin's down by about 1% over the last 24 hours, and the rest of the cryptocurrency market is rather red also. If we see here, Bitcoin's volume's also down compared to where it had been over the last couple of days. We had seen Bitcoin having volume up here around $6.5 billion, even a little bit higher depending on the day. You can see the volume has been gradually tapering off here over the last couple of days as Bitcoin starts to retrace and starts to lose a bit of that price action that had built up over the last couple of weeks. XRP is currently trading around 36 cents, and Ethereum is under $128. I said yesterday it was 2 to the 8th, it's 2 to the 7th. I went and checked my math because I'm such a nerd. I had to. Anyway, Bitcoin Cash is trading around $166, massively retraced from all-time high, but all the cryptocurrencies are. If we sort by change over the last 24 hours, we're going to see there's 3 double-digit gainers, Linky, Polymath, and Eternally up here in either the top 10 or the bottom 10 is Eternal token, up 80% today. I always tell you guys when you see a major run in a cryptocurrency like this, be very careful. Just because this is red and just because there's an 8 in the front of the, just because this is green and just because it starts with 8 and it's an 80% gain does not mean you want to go and jump in on Eternal token. Oftentimes, it's exactly the opposite. If you scroll down here on CoinMarketCap and we look at something like DEX that is down 33%, if you were to 100 times invest $100 in DEX here or invest in Eternal token, you would make more money investing in DEX, because oftentimes when you see a market go to these extremes, when they go really, really high really quickly or they go really, really low really quickly, then typically you're going to see some kind of sustained correction, whether that be a bearish correction from a massive run-up on Eternal token here or a bullish correction from something like DEX down here. So if you're looking to make money and you want to be very careful about what you're trading in, if you were to buy anything on the market based purely off of how much it's moved over the last 24 hours, you would want to buy DEX here. Anyway, we do see that the vast majority of the market is red today, and that's really not that big of a deal. You kind of expect to see a little bit of red following the bullishness that's come back into Bitcoin here over the last couple of weeks, and especially considering the bearishness that's coming out of the S&P 500. Even as we're recording this video, the market is dropping. We did see a little bit of a gap up here. The S&P 500 was trading a couple points lower just a little while ago. We're not going to be talking about the stock market in today's video. You can watch the video in the top right if you're interested in the stock market, because we did go into quite a bit of detail there yesterday. Anyway, I think I'm rambling enough on CoinMarketCap. I think we made our point, and I think we are ready to move on to the TA. What we want to look at here is the little rally that we've seen form in Bitcoin here over the last couple of days. And guys, this video probably will be a bit shorter because we're talking about some pretty narrow technical analysis, and I'm zooming out to talk about a little bit wider technical analysis. We did like a 30-minute video yesterday, so you guys know I don't just do YouTube videos. Some of you guys think that's all I do, and I promise you I do actually have a life. At least that's what I tell myself. Anyway, as we can see here over the last couple of weeks, Bitcoin, I almost said Ethereum for some reason, Bitcoin has been rallying here, and it rallied from a recent low of around $3,200 to up around $4,200. That was about a 30% rally. Bitcoin had been doing pretty well, actually over a 30% rally, depending on how you measure that. But in the last couple of days, we kind of broke this uptrend here that I had drawn on my chart in a rather major way. Normally when you break a big level of resistance, and this was definitely a major uptrend of support, when you break a level of support, and this is a major uptrend of support, I should say, you typically see a big red candlestick like we saw here. But really, in reality, it looks like Bitcoin's trading down over the last couple of days, but it's actually basically just been trading sideways for the last week or so, straight through the Christmas season. Merry Christmas, by the way. I know Christmas is over, but merry belated Christmas and happy early New Year. Anyway, we've seen Bitcoin trade sideways and trade down from here. There's a lot of different reasons about why Bitcoin perhaps got resistance at $4,200 or so. I would say a lot of it has to do with former resistance and former support over here in these regions, and also the fact that Bitcoin had a 30% move right there, a 30 to 35% move following a major bearish movement. And I've been saying for several weeks that we were going to see something like this, some kind of bullish correction to come, because when Bitcoin rallies 100% a day, normally you're going to see some kind of bearish correction. When Bitcoin crashes 50% in a month, typically you're going to see some kind of bullish correction, and that's exactly what we've seen. So I think a lot of this is just kind of not necessarily a dead cat bounce. There definitely could be something here. This definitely could evolve into something, but at the moment I'm most inclined to believe that this, at the moment anyway, not regarding what we're about to talk about, this at the moment is essentially just a little bit of a bounce following that major sell-off. Now, what's that formation, that chart pattern that I was talking about in the title of today's video and also earlier on in the video? Well, I talked about in yesterday's video, so it's not really a surprise, and most of you guys do your own technical analysis, so you know exactly what I'm talking about here because you can see it before you. But in this video, I want to talk about this inverse head and shoulders pattern with the shoulder right there, the head right there, and what appears to be a forming shoulder right over here. Now, you guys all are probably familiar with what an inverse head and shoulders pattern is, but if you were not familiar, I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of a warm-up. A head and shoulders pattern looks something like this. You have a head, you have a shoulder over here, you have a head that's a little bit higher, and then you have a shoulder, and typically something like this happens at the end of a bullish rally, that being the bullish rally, and leads into a bearish downtrend. Now, if you see the inverse head and shoulders pattern, then you're seeing the exact opposite. You see a shoulder, then you see the head, and you see the shoulder. I have to be careful how I draw that because some of you guys have your mind in the gutter. But nevertheless, typically when you see a head and shoulders pattern or an inverse head and shoulders pattern, it is in fact a reversal pattern. So if you have your head and shoulders pattern, normally that means that the bullishness is going to turn into bearishness. And the exact opposite when you see a pattern like this. We see the shoulder right there, we see the head right there, and we see what appears to be a forming shoulder over here. And typically an inverse head and shoulders pattern is a reversal signal and a bottoming pattern, which is very interesting because I talk about in a couple of videos on the channel, and I'll go ahead and rehash a little bit this topic, but the fact is, not the fact is, but in my opinion anyway, $3,000 seems to be a very strong level of support. It seems to be a very, very powerful level of support. There are literally about a dozen different technicals that are pointing to $3,000 being a level of support, and when you see that, that's called the convergence of support and resistance. In that case, the convergence of support. That's such an important topic. I made an entire video on in the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. That sale for crypto for CT2A is now over, but there will be ones in the future, so if you missed out on that, watch out in the future. Although a lot of you guys did join, it seems like you guys are enjoying the TA course. Anyway, there's a lot of different technical analysis going into convergence of support that shows that $3,000 is a very strong level of support. So what does that mean? That means that it gives us more of a chance that Bitcoin could perhaps be forming an inverse head and shoulders pattern here, because whenever you see an inverse head and shoulders pattern, a lot of times they form around strong levels of support. And I'll go ahead and go over briefly, because I've talked about it so much, why $3,000 is such an important level of support. I'm not going to get into all of it because there is a lot of reasons why 3K is a very important level of support. One of the major ones is because it used to be a level of resistance over here, and then it turned into a level of support. Also, it's about 85% retrace from all-time high, which is the exact amount of retrace from all-time high that Bitcoin actually bottomed out in the 2014 and 15 bear market. If you come back in here if you come back over here to the 2014-15 bear market, you find that back over here, Bitcoin retraced the exact same percent, about 85%. There's a lot of reasons why $3,000 seems like a strong level of support, and that's one of the reasons. One of $3,000 being a strong level of support is one of the reasons why an inverse head and shoulders pattern forming here would make a lot of sense. But let's go ahead and analyze this inverse head and shoulders pattern and see what it actually says. Let's go back out to the 4-hour actually and bring up volume. One thing that you like to see in inverse head and shoulders patterns is that the volume gradually tends to decline and gradually tends to fall off. We've kind of seen that because Bitcoin has been having, we had a lot of volume coming in here, of course, since Bitcoin just went skiing here for a little while on a waterfall of blood, and we saw a lot of volume down here. And the volume's been tapering off a little bit. We got some more volume moving into this part of the shoulder, and it's been tapering off a little bit. Volume looks fine. I'm not going to go too deep into the volume analysis today, but I do also want to talk about the neckline. Of course, with every inverse head and shoulders pattern, if you have a head and shoulders pattern, then what you normally have is you have something called the neckline, and that right there would be the neckline where these two pieces meet. If you were to draw it like that, if the chart did something like that, those touches would be the touches that define the neckline. And we have a very well-defined neckline here of around $4,200, about $4,200, $4,250. It's a little vague depending on how you draw it, but basically this is our neckline. We see that Bitcoin came up and tested resistance at it up here. Very, very nice that Bitcoin tested resistance on that to establish that as the neckline. And also we see that Bitcoin, as I said earlier, had levels of support over here and levels of resistance over here. In general, this does look like a well-defined inverse head and shoulders pattern. It's got a little bit of a wonky head down here, albeit I guess we have the hunchback of Notre Dame trying to recover Bitcoin here because it looks rather strange, but that doesn't really matter. What matters the most is the overall pattern that the market has formed, and we've definitely been forming this inverse head and shoulders pattern, which, as I've said so many times, is a bullish pattern and definitely a signal of a reversal pattern. So what does that mean as far as where Bitcoin is going to go over the next couple of weeks? Does that mean that Bitcoin is going to crash? Does that mean that Bitcoin is going to rally? Does that mean that Bitcoin is going to go left? It's going to go left into our screen. Our screens are two-dimensional. It's going to go out of my screen and hit the wall behind my computer. No. What this means, and what this normally means, what this is calling for, I should say, is that normally when you see an inverse head and shoulders pattern get into this state right here, where it's not totally formed, but mostly formed, a lot of times what you see is that since we're already like 80% of the way through forming it, we're probably going to see some kind of bounce down here above $3,600, because a lot of times not only will you have a neckline like we see right here, you'll also have a shoulder line, which we could draw right there. It would make a lot of sense for Bitcoin to pull back to around $3,600, establish this shoulder line right there, and then have a nice bounce. And we'll probably see that bounce go up and break $4,200 if this inverse head and shoulders pattern plays out the way that inverse head and shoulders patterns normally do. So basically what we're seeing here is we're seeing Bitcoin has had a little bit of a correction over the last couple of days and is moving down, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it shows that we're actually moving into an inverse head and shoulders pattern that I mentioned that we might be moving into a couple of days ago, before this really started forming. So what this means also is that if Bitcoin does pull back down here to around $3,600, and honestly it doesn't need to pull back down there where it is right now, and around the bottom now around $3,700 and the bottom over here around $3,600 are perfectly fine, we would likely be seeing some kind of bounce for Bitcoin above $4,200. Tell me in the comment section down below what you think of that technical analysis. Do you think that Bitcoin is going to bounce off of that $3,600 to $3,700 region and bounce above $4,200? And if so, where do you see Bitcoin going after that? Because I'm not necessarily saying that Bitcoin is going to go up here and exactly mirror what it did when it came down here. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying Bitcoin's going to $6,000, but this does nevertheless look rather bullish, and it does look like Bitcoin is probably going to start moving up here over the next couple of days and on into the next couple of weeks, moving on into Bitcoin's 10th birthday, which actually comes in about a week on the 3rd of January, right over there. Let's get a vertical line right here. On the 3rd of January, we actually see that Bitcoin turns 10. So there very well may be some bullish price action coming out of that, just because everybody's happy. They're going to go buy some Bitcoin for themselves and their friends. We've never seen that happen, of course, because you only turn 10 once, but we may see Bitcoin do a little bit. We might see Bitcoin have a nice big green candlestick on that day, just from everybody celebrating. Anyway, that is basically going to do it for this video, guys. I do apologize that the video is shorter, but of course, there's not always a major financial crisis going on that I can talk about, like there was in yesterday's video having to do with the S&P 500. One thing I could also mention is that shorts are gradually moving downward, and as we've talked about in the past, Bitcoin likes when the shorts drop. Anyway, that is basically going to do it for this video. I know I've said that already, but I do want to thank each and every single one of you for watching. As always, if you enjoyed the video, definitely consider dropping a like. It does help out the channel if you do it, and I will be seeing you guys in the next video. Peace.